Dan. You're all right. You're all right. Don't worry. How you doing, Lisa? Yeah, same here. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Just want to make one quick announcement before you leave. Not come again? Oh, it's for the TV in the back, John, for the recording. Before you leave, please swipe at our computer. This way, we're able to track you and also let you know of future events that we host here. My name is Lawrence Owens. I am the president of the Graduate and Part-Time Student Council here at Kane University for Student Government. I also thank everybody for coming out here tonight and this evening. We host these special events for graduate and part-time students as well as undergraduate students to get you guys more involved and also get you guys a more learning experience and cultural experience here on campus. I also want to thank the Alumni Association for helping us and assisting us in this event. We really appreciate their support in this effort. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce all of our tonight's panelists who were wonderful enough to sign up and take on this beautiful endeavor. To my left is Daniel Anthony. He's the program support specialist at the Department of Children and Families. And next to him is Lisa McGregor Kaplan, president of Kane University chapter of Phi Alpha Alpha and certified public manager and certified court manager. Next to her is Susan Smith Foley. She is the owner and occupational therapist at Avon Occupational Therapy. And next to her is Michael J. Dardia, administrative director of Accountable Care Organization at Hackensack University Health Network. Each of our panelists are going to give their story, their journey, their life experience in their jobs as well as life in general. They're going to give you some advice, some tips, some knowledge they picked up that will hopefully assist you in our learning experience together. We're all young, and some of us really need an understanding of where to go in life. And hopefully they're able to give us that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Daniel, and he can start.
Good evening, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me through this or if it's even on. Okay. As he said, my name is Daniel Anthony. I work for the Department of Children and Families, formerly known as DIFAS. I started off as a social worker and had made the transition over from social work to fiscal administration. My title is actually called a Program Support Specialist, Title 4E Reviewer, which means I handle the federal funding that actually gets ciphered in from Washington, D.C. to our state agency, and I pretty much represent as that auditor to make sure that there are checks and balances so that when Washington actually comes up to audit the Department of Children and Families, I serve as that liaison person to make sure that our books are in order. I recently graduated from the MPA program May of 2016. I actually started in another program, a social work related program, and I guess I'll talk about that a little later, but that's just a brief introduction of me, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa McGregor Kaplan. As Lawrence had mentioned, I am the president of Pi Alpha Alpha. I'm a certified public manager, and that's accredited through the state of New Jersey Treasury Department, and also a certified court manager through the National Center for State Courts in Williamsburg, Virginia. I've been working for the Superior Court of New Jersey for almost 20 years, and I actually started out in the Traffic Bureau of Linden City Hall when I was a junior in high school. So little did I know at that point that networking would be so important. So that was the start of my journey, and I kind of took the long way when it came to education. I took the scenic route. I went to college right out of high school, and it wasn't really for me, and then I went to work, and then later on, after hearing, you'd just be perfect for the job, but you don't have a degree. So now I fixed that. I have 3 degrees. So, so as a mature person, I went back to graduated with a bachelor's in psychology, bachelor's in public administration, and a master's in public administration in 2013. And I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. So I'm Susan Smith Foley, and I'm an occupational therapist. I graduated in 1983 from the occupational therapy program here at Kane, And I have to say it was really a wonderful program, and I'm forever grateful to Kane University for giving me such a fantastic education and for a really reduced amount of money. So, so it's hard to imagine, but when I went to Kane, it was $500 a semester, which which is unbelievable today. And I have children that we just put through college, and I could tell you, like, nothing was $500. Yeah. So anyway, I became an occupational therapist, and soon after, I realized that I was starting to work in hospitals, and I really wanted to just put myself on a trajectory. You know, I love my career as an occupational therapist, but at that point, I was really interested in hospital administration and moving up from like an OT supervisor position. So that's what launched me into pursuing an MPA degree, and that I obtained at Seton Hall University. So also in this general area. It was not $500 a semester, but also a really great degree to have, and it really broadened my perspective of you know, how things work beyond just my profession, and it really has helped me to this day in ways that I'll describe. So I also recently, in 2015, went back for my doctoral degree in occupational therapy. And had I not had that MPA that I went to soon after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I probably wouldn't have gone, because I would have had to get a master's degree and a doctoral degree. So I really feel like all these steps in life are so important, and just by completing the bachelor's degree and moving on to the master's degree, even though I didn't really, there was a long gap in my college education, although I did many other professional, you know, coursework and certifications, it was really it was very important, and I really think that Kane has so much to offer. And I come from extremely humble roots, so my sisters and I, we had to share a family car and pick a college that we could drive to, and you know, with the one family car. So, you know, somehow we made it work, and we all graduated with degrees from different state universities in this area. So. I look forward to answering any questions or hearing your stories as well.
Hi, and good evening. I'm Mike Dardia. Very happy to be here and return to this beautiful campus. Kane has certainly changed since I graduated. That was 1996. I graduated with an MPA in Health Services Administration. I made that decision to come to Kane after a couple years of working in the film industry. I had graduated from Ithaca College with a film degree and with hopes to go out and be a great movie director, and somehow that didn't work out. I actually was looking for something a little more fulfilling. So after several years of research, and I did make this decision, and it was actually a great decision to go back to school and earn an MPA, and was very fortunate to be able to get a graduate assistant position here within the public administration department. So I was able to complete the degree in 2 years, and so going full-time and having the tuition paid for was just an excellent thing, and completely owe Kane so much for that opportunity. So after earning that degree, I moved on to spending just a year in New Jersey working a small healthcare facility. I moved on to some other roles in New York City within some academic medical centers, mostly on hospital administration, hospital operations. Found myself involved in quality improvement activities, and then worked my way into some revenue cycle operations roles. And most recently, I was with Hackensack University Medical Center, where I was running the operations for their accountable care organization. And if you're not sure what that is, I'd be happy to answer some questions about that. Accountable care is really the wave of how healthcare reimbursement is going. There's a strong emphasis on that from Medicare. So both hospitals and physician practices are being driven to provide care in a more quality-oriented way, and one that focuses on the patient experience. So, but I should say that I'm not with Hackensack any longer. Due to some merger activity with Hackensack and Meridian Health System, my position was eliminated after my department was restructured. So I'm in transition, and that's another story. I'd be happy to kind of tell you how I'm navigating those waters. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. So now we're going to open up to the questions for everybody here. You can ask any questions you guys want to ask them as relates to their job, profession, or anything of life skills in general. So whoever has a question, just raise their hand, and we'll point you out, and they'll answer for you. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah. So yes, definitely challenges, and I think that helped for me once I graduated to have a sense of where I wanted to go. After I had actually interned while here at Kane, I had interned at Muhlenberg Hospital. I don't think that hospital exists any longer, but I had a wonderful opportunity to intern there for a semester, and that really gave me a great sense of the importance of networking. So having those contacts and building upon those contacts. So when you graduate and throughout your career, you will understand how important it is to maintain relationships and cultivate those relationships. So you understand it's not just, it's definitely a give and take sort of thing. So I would say that the biggest challenge was identifying that first job and realizing whether it was, the right fit. And I think, once you get into that first job and you understand, where your career is going, I think that, once again, maintaining those relationships both at school, maintaining, the relationships you have with your classmates and with your professors is very important because you always fall back on those. So that's it.
So I'll just add to that. So my career has stayed as an occupational therapist, but how the MPA degree has helped me was just really to broaden my perspective and to make me it really enhanced my opportunities in my career as an occupational therapist. So I kind of used it to broaden my existing career, but you can also use it, as more of a. I really think the MPA is a very versatile degree to have.
The biggest challenge for me was since I was already established in a career, and my actual title is administrative specialist, getting pigeonholed into a category where you're not exactly senior management, but you're in that gray area, the in-between category where you're above here, but you're not quite there. So even with a degree, I think I have to prove myself more than anyone else. But it did open a lot of doors, and it granted me a lot more interviews than I had experienced before, where, this job market is really intense, especially in government. There is probably, I would say, at minimum of 300 applications for one position. So you're either going to be in this pile that you're going to be seen, or you're going to be in this pile over here. So I managed to get, I would say, probably a dozen interviews last year And that was after getting the MPA. So it was very helpful, but I have to work probably harder than other people that started out in the lower ranks of management. And I always take the opportunity to reinvent myself and get different credentials and basically build my resume, because that's the only thing that, if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. I look at it as an investment in myself. So thank you.
For me, I think the biggest challenge was actually within my head itself. Most times while we're pursuing our educational degree, whether it be graduate or undergrad, the biggest challenge we have is, am I qualified? So while we are seeking to get our degree, we are applying for jobs. And most times we are getting those rejection letters. And sometimes the rejection letter plays on you, and it'll tell you that I'm not as qualified. But when you actually still operating in the sense of the rejection that I have been getting over the last few years or so. So it actually took, for me to actually overcome that, it actually took a good networking piece of having individuals in my circle that actually said, you have a degree. You know, Danny, you are qualified. You actually have a master's degree. You're more qualified. So that's sort of how I began to build myself up. And then as I began to see that I am qualified, it allowed me to qualify my resume. So my resume now has to speak of this degree that I obtained. Going out to seek a job or a career, whether it be entry level or you're trying to go a little further in depth, employers don't necessarily look to see that you have a master's, a doctorate, or anything like that. When they view your resume, they're looking to see if you obtained a degree, because when you obtain that degree, you're telling that employer that I'm actually teachable, that I'm teachable. We go through 4 years of college, and for many, some of us, we advance ourselves and go through another 2.5 to 3 years of studying to achieve an advanced degree. And some of us even go a step further to achieve the doctorate degree. That actually tells people that you are teachable. Most times when we apply for jobs, sometimes they look at us and qualify us for entry-level positions. The entry-level position is actually telling them, you are at this prime rate where we can actually teach you to grow under our company. So when you obtain that degree, you're telling them, I'm teachable. So that became sort of like my biggest struggle, and then sort of structuring my resume in such a way that is actually speaking of what I just went through the process of learning over the last 4 years or an additional 3 years. I still got the mic, huh? I started off working for DIFAS, Department of Children and Families, formerly known as DIFAS. And I started off working as a social worker. And I love to work with people. I love to help families. I know that's a gift that I have, the ability to engage people. And I thought I would want to put it to use. So I became a social worker. I had an undergrad degree in business finance. And I said, wow, Danny, you obtained a degree in business finance, but here you are working in social services. Now, where's the connection for that? And as I began to try and advance myself as a social worker, one of the challenges that I faced was, according to them, I wasn't qualified enough to be a social worker of a certain magnitude because I did not have a master's degree in social work. So I was only looked at as this person that has basic knowledge. Although I've been working in the field for quite some time, they didn't view me in such a way. So what I decided to do was, okay, you're telling me I'm not qualified. I'm going to go back and qualify myself so that you won't be able to tell me that I'm not qualified again. So in doing so, I decided to pursue a social service advanced degree under a program. And I started off in that program, and how did I end up into the MPA degree is this. I started off in the program. One of the classes that I was taking got canceled, and it was like, oh, go find an elective that'll fit for you. One of the students that's under the program leaned over and said, I took a nonprofit course under the MPA program, and they accepted it. So I said, I used to work for a nonprofit. Let me go and work and to take the course. Brought it to the advisor. Yes, Danny, we'll take it. I enrolled into the program with Dr. Moore, her nonprofit course, and they had the General Assembly in the beginning of the semester. And as I was sort of already into my second semester into the program, I'm just taking this elective, and Dr. Moore said, oh, tonight's our General Assembly. Everybody come over. And I said, I'm not under your program. I don't need to come over. Can I just go home? Dr. Moore said, no, just come over in here. And I'm like, I'm not interested. She said, okay, well, be my cameraman, and you'll get credit. So I was like, I'm sold. So I actually went to the open house, and I started to take the pictures, and I began to hear about the program. So as I'm walking around the General Assembly room, taking the pictures and listening to the program, I went from taking pictures to taking pictures, but not taking pictures. Because listening to what the MPA had to offer, it sort of became that aha moment. And that's when I knew, I think I'm going to make this transition into the MPA program. After talking with Dr. Moore, she sort of found out where I was career-wise, what I wanted to do, and where I wanted to go, and we both agreed this would be a perfect fit. So I transitioned into the MPA program, and I must honestly say it was one of the best decisions that I made by far in my life, because not only did it electrify me, so to speak, I wanted to know so much more constantly about the program. I excelled very well in the program. I got all A's in every class, but I only got all of the A's because Dr. Moore and her staff, every class that I took, they took the time to invest. You know, I wasn't just taking a class. I was taking a course to see how it would benefit me. So that support under the MPA program is definitely there. It's all in how you want to actually go after that support. They're definitely there. I've never had any problems with making appointments or the staff making themselves available. So that's how it benefited me.
Wow, that was good. Okay. I was already established in my career, so it didn't exactly shape my whole picture. But what it did do, it explained a lot of the managerial procedures, where I was just kind of watching the managers and just kind of shaking my head and say, okay, you know, what are you going to give me next? And now it's more of, okay, this is what they're doing, this is why they're doing it, and it makes sense. And the pieces started to connect, and then I could follow the whole process and then anticipate what the next step is going to be, whereas it didn't make any sense to me before, where I was just going along. So now there's a double-edged sword here, though, with the actual classes. And I got this from, I've been here, let's see, from 2007 to 2013. And I always got a kick out of the first day of class, where we would go around the room and everyone would say, what do you expect to get out of the program? And everybody wanted to be a director of something. So that doesn't happen right out of the gate. So you have to pay your dues. You have to work up. And what it is, you're going to see where your pieces are fitting into your puzzle. And not all of it is going to apply to you. You're not going to be interested in all of it, but it's going to make sense. So if you have the book smarts from Kane, and they do make the pieces more manageable, where you can interpret them and you can apply them, it'll make sense when you're out into the business world, and when you go on an interview and they're talking about budgets and they're talking about procedural things. You can have your input and you can show how you can, you know, apply yourself to the position where it's going to work. So that's what I get out of the program.
So in regards to Kane, I would say what Kane do in my education, and then what my MPA program from Seton Hall University offered me was enrichment in my degree. And now, so I transitioned from, I went all through public, you know, grade school and high school, and then I came to Kane, which is a public school, as you know. Then I went to Seton Hall, a private university, and now I'm back at a public university. So it's interesting. I would say public university, you get so much value. And I think the diversity is really, you know, amazing. And I just feel like it's, it gives you like real world expertise when you graduate. So, you know, I think each one of us will walk away with a different take of what the MPA degree did for them professionally. But I think that's what, when Danny was describing it, you know, it's really, you tailor it to what you want to be.
So the MPA degree it really shaped me in a lot of different ways. As I said, I started this program fresh and didn't have any prior professional experience in healthcare, so it was very influential. So a lot of different stories. One story I'll tell you actually involves Dr. Farahi, and I can't recall whether it may have been my second year. I was taking a quantitative methods class with him, and so first of all, you know, here I am, a graduate assistant. I'm working within his department. You know, I'm trying to make an impression, and I'm in this class. And here he's the chair of the department. I'm pretty nervous, but you know, in the class, I'm like, what am I ever going to use this for? You know, what is this class? What is this course? You know, it's a requirement. I'll just get through it. Well, it turned out during the course of that semester, you know, I must have run into some kind of personal issue there where I had to take an incomplete for the course. So, but I had to, you know, of course, approach him and request that. And wow, that was super daunting. And but you know, as intimidating as he can be, he was completely understanding. And the fact that he allowed me to do that and then make up the class later was incredibly impressive and something that influenced me. So later on, when I was in a position of authority, you know, as a director or a manager or even a supervisor, I really took that into consideration, that he made that impression upon me, and I kind of carried that forward, working with employees, understanding their concerns and not being so hard on them, and so it certainly made a tremendous impression. Well, I will tell you that class is really important, and sure enough, I to this day I use that knowledge that he taught in that class. Data analytics is incredibly important, so don't fall asleep in that class. Pay attention. You're going to use that stuff. Well, networking is incredibly important for your career, and I don't have to tell anyone. Something that you kind of learn, and I'm glad that you have a sense of it now. I didn't really quite get the importance of it until probably a little later in my career. When you establish those relationships, you fall back on those, as I said before, on your relationships that you developed with your professors and your classmates. They really become quite important. So if you're transitioning to a new career, don't break ties with those from your former career. continue to cultivate those relationships, and those folks really are a sounding board for where you're going. You can share ideas with them, and what I've learned as a professional in networking is you just never know who your next hiring manager could be. So, even though you may be in a profession that's different from where you're going to go, I would say continue to cultivate those relationships. See if anyone in your current profession knows of people who may help you going forward. And you'd be amazed at how wonderful people are and how giving they are of their time. As I said, I'm in a transition now. I rely very much on networking. And, through LinkedIn, I often connect with people who I don't know, but they know, the profession that I'm in. Maybe they are just, just willing to give maybe 20 minutes of their time. And through that brief conversation, you develop a relationship. And it's completely up to you where it goes from there. So I would say to you, don't forget about who you've met along the way, and those in your current profession. Those folks could really help you out. So continue to network, maybe through LinkedIn or just through basic conversation.
Just to add to what Mike just said, also the value of a mentor. And a mentor is, it could be anyone, someone who's guided you. It could be someone from your faith. It could be someone that you currently work with. It could be one of your professors. I'm really big in practicing in the field of autism and autism with children. So I need to network with many other people to really make sure I'm doing best practice for children and families. And that career path, I've either used mentors that I've just developed relationships with, or also had paid mentors, which have also been helpful, particularly if you're going for a certification in an area where you really need, to pass the test or reach certain credentials. So I think mentors are really important, and I try to give back as someone who's been practicing in my field for a while, and if someone gives me a call, I try and spend a few minutes. So I think, and you also have a lot of value for people who haven't reached your level of journey yet. So I think we all can be reciprocal in our mentoring and being mentors to others, because it's generally through that way that you make contacts. And for myself, I'm looking to do more teaching as my next journey, which is really one of the reasons why I chose to go back to school now, because to have an advanced doctoral degree is really important when you want to teach at the university level. So that's what drove me, but I think it's also having that inner drive. Tonight clearly has inner drive to be here, and because it's probably not an easy time for you to be out and away from your families or from what your jobs normally require. So I would say definitely mentors.
Okay. I'm going to piggyback off of Susan. In case you didn't know, ALI has a formal mentoring program. They have a whole gamut of mentors available, and they've done a phenomenal job with pairing. I have a mentor that is an undergrad student, and there is a formal program that is followed, and I'm teaching her things that she doesn't know about. She's actually teaching me a few things that I don't know about. There's always ways to learn from somebody else. And now to answer your question about the networking, it's not as formal all the time. If you went out to lunch with a friend and you're talking about your jobs and you're talking about, I have a friend who does X, That's actually networking. I work for the government, but you wouldn't think that I can network with Susan in education or occupational therapy, or Mike in the medical field, or Daniel, well, we're both in government, but it's amazing because I know someone that I could recommend to Michael as a lead. I know probably several people that I could recommend to Susan because my kids have special needs, so I've been through the gamut of what's in her field. And then Daniel, I made a personal recommendation to him recently. So there's always something that you can share with somebody else, and it doesn't have to be as formal as, hello, my name is, how can you help me? If you do that, you're not really going to get anywhere because you don't have any relationship with them. They don't have a reason to help you, and if they do, it's just, I want to say to be nice, but say if you went to like one of these functions here and you happen to be having dinner and the person in front of you is, turns around and says hello, and you get in a conversation of, oh, what's your major? When did you graduate? That kind of thing, and then you get in a conversation about their background. That's networking. So it doesn't always have to be a formal program, but it's anytime you have a conversation about anything, someone can always benefit you. So if you were to build that relationship and keep in touch, whether it's by LinkedIn or it's an occasional email just to say hi or happy Thanksgiving or whatever the thing is. You don't have to be a stalker and say, don't forget me, and that's a true story. I'll give you just a quick example. In 2010, I interviewed over the phone for a job in Arizona for their Superior Court there. I was all ready to move. I had been there for my honeymoon. I was totally excited, and I was looking to go. Ironically, I made the final 2 by a phone interview. They had never set eyes on me. I never got on a plane, never went there, and they ended up giving the job to the person that was already in Arizona. So the moral of the story here is that I kept in contact with the court administrator of the Arizona, actually Maricopa County Superior Court. We, to this day, still just send back and forth little emails. Hi, how you doing? If I see something in the news that mentions Maricopa County Court, I'm like, hey, how you doing? How does this affect you? Or if they have whatever, torrential sandstorms, whatever it is that makes the news, or I'll say, oh, the winning lottery ticket was sold in Phoenix. Is that you? And it's still, he remembers me. He knows who I am. We exchange little greetings, holiday kind of things. I interviewed for 2 more jobs in Arizona over the phone. One of these days, maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't, but there's a lot of options open. So just little relationships, if you can build them, you'd be amazed on how far it'll take you. And it could be just a 2-line email, and people remember you. So it doesn't have to be something as formal of, you look up the CEO's, name and address and just send a generic letter. It's going to go in the square filing. So have just the conversations wherever they take you, whether it's on vacation, anywhere. Okay, thanks.
Just to piggyback off everyone, as it pertains to networking, we hear a lot about building our brand, trying to build us up or to make us marketable. But the biggest for me when it comes to networking is to sort of build you up. A lot of times we're always looking for that hookup, so to speak. But in my experience, the hookup only happens based upon how well prepared you are for any position that you can potentially be thinking about. So I believe that to invest in yourself, build yourself up, that will begin to expand your knowledge on, okay, now that I'm building myself up, it sort of bursts you out. It'll make you want to go out and connect. It'll make you want to explore other avenues as it pertains to, like you said, like your career. We're all in different careers. But you have to be willing to sort of come outside of a comfort zone. Because the truth is, we may say I'm looking for this job, but most times, if we really think about it, we're looking for this career that's going to change our life. That's something that we're going to invest in for a long time. And that takes real strategic planning and hard work. So that won't happen overnight. You know, that actually takes time. And you have to know that it takes time. And you have to invest and keep investing in yourself so that when you have that elevator moment with, that 30-second elevator moment with Mr. CEO, you know, you're not just basically trying to sell yourself. They pick up your aura. And it's because you built yourself up. And the more you market, the more you interact with people just in general. I believe we all were created to interact. And the more you make yourself available to interact, you learn how to interact with people. You learn what to say, you learn what not to say. You know, you learn, you know, sometimes, oh, I got this elevator moment, but is it the right time? Sometimes timing doesn't always work in our favor. So you have to know when the time is right. You have to know to invest in yourself. And don't be afraid to try new things. A lot of times, I was even talking with a colleague today, and I'm like, yo, man, I think you should apply for this position. And I'm like, you got the skills, you got the qualifications, you just graduated, you have your master's, and you want to know what his reply was? I don't know, I'm comfortable where I am. You know, I'm like, buddy, so why did you go back to school? You know, you didn't go back to school to stay comfortable. You went back to school to stretch your knowledge so that you can use it and apply it. So don't underestimate ourselves. Always be trying to interact is what I would say to you. So sort of like your question is like a transition? Right. So within the work dynamic, but then also personally, how that plays into that work changing with your family life, that work-life balance. I believe you have to have at least a few people in your corner always that's supporting what you're doing. And when you have those people in your corner supporting you, for me, I have 11 brothers and sisters. 11. My brothers and sisters have been my support system. They're always pushing me. Hey, you can do it. Go for it. Even tonight, I'm like, I think they want me to, I'm not too sure. And they're like, no, you can do it. Go try it. So there has to be this support that you have. Because even with all the confidence that we may have, you know, we still need that support. And whether you have children, a spouse, always be in communication with them, especially when they talk about transitions within a company. You always got to have those conversations with your family. And even within a company, sometimes like she talked about marketing and networking. The more you network, it gives you a greater opportunity that when transition begins to happen within a company, you can say, oh, I know such and such, maybe I can make this transition. Or because I've interacted with them, at a few of the holiday functions or events, I can reach out to them. So for me, I think that the support system is one of the biggest components. It's the biggest thing that has been influential to me, having that support. That's always, as things begin to change, as she said, we work for government. Every 4 years or so, every 4 years, or every a new president or a new governor, those things affect our agencies, and we see departments get eliminated under certain governments. We see departments created under certain governments. So that happens. It happens. But I think having that big support from those key individuals, and always be talking with those key individuals. Because if you're married, if you have a spouse, and you're not talking with them, that can make sort of like that transition difficult because you're not talking about it.
Okay. Put your seatbelts on for this one. All right. We're going back 11 years now. I had gone back to school in 2005, and I was a divorced mom of 3 kids and trying to kind of find my way in the whole divorce thing. I decided I'm going back to school. So my kids were very supportive, but I did wait until they got older. And actually, my oldest daughter and I were in college at the same time. So when I met my husband, I was a student, and he would kind of tease his friends saying, yeah, I'm dating a college girl. I was a 40-something college girl, but nevertheless. So when I met him, he didn't know anything else because I'd always been in school. So he actually got blown off for his first date with me because I had finals, and I just said, maybe after the holidays. So that was the start of, I knew that he was an understanding person when I wouldn't go out with him because I had to study for finals. So fast forward. So he never knew anything different other than me being in school, having papers, and I was only going to be home maybe one evening a week during the week, and my kids kind of had the routine, and they were always set up with dinner, then we always made sure everything was handled. So, and then when my daughter went to college and she said, oh, this is so hard, I can't do this, I got this paper and exam, and she would go on and on. I'm like, I'm right there with you. I said, if I'm going to do it, you're going to do it. And I said, quitting is not an option. So, lesson learned there. And then in 2008, I got married in the middle of a semester. So my honeymoon was delayed by 18 months until I graduated, or close to graduating. No, I'm sorry. It was in the summer when I was off in between semesters. So you build your life around what is going to work for you. Your circumstances reflect your intentions. If you want to be successful in school, you're going to make that happen. So if you want to say that, it's just too hard and whatever it is, then you won't do it. So it goes by your mindset and what you're willing to sacrifice. But you're also teaching, like my kids, they got taught great lessons that with hard work and sacrifice, most times it pays off. So, but then you get your priorities in order. So we made a point of having vacation when we were all available, and then we would do dinner where everybody's sitting at the table at least once a week, even though I've been coming and going and passing myself in the doorways once in a while. But you make it work if you want to, and you don't if you don't want to. And sometimes it just gets delayed because when I went to college the first time, I wasn't ready for it. So I put it on the back burner. Life got in the way. I did the marriage thing, the kid thing, and then when I was mentally prepared for it, I handled it. So, and I'm sure anybody else that wants to do it can do the same.
Right. So just to add to that, I would say what I found, and like all my ducks in a row, I like to know what's coming ahead, what's behind me. But you really have to be flexible because there's lots of things that come along the way, and for good and for bad. Like marriage is a happy event, having children is a happy event, but then there's that also, that aren't so happy that, could come in the way. So when I was finishing up writing my master's thesis, I was getting ready to deliver our first son. So I said, okay, great. I'm going to have 6 weeks off from work, and I'm going to write my whole thesis. Now so obviously I was completely off the mark, because anyone who's had a newborn baby, there's no way you're going to write a master's thesis with a newborn baby. So that was an adjustment. So sometimes it's resetting your plans, readjusting, and then so 18 months later I graduated, and our son was present. So it was it was like a happy event, But I have to say, like, sometimes it's just like you have to go with what the change that's presented to you, and just make sure that that you just readjust. And I provide occupational therapy services to school districts, and one particular school district is always in financial challenges. And I was the coordinator of occupational therapy services, and that position was completely eliminated. It was a position I loved, even though I was a consultant. I loved that. But it's also, so I my hours got downsized, but I found a new opportunity. So sometimes, like, I was really heartbroken about it. And I think, we all have these heartbreaking experiences, but you kind of have to get up, dust yourself off, and and look for the next opportunity. And by me having this unexpected event, it put me in a different work environment, and it's actually, I have more it's given me different opportunities to grow in. So I have to say, like, each thing, good or bad, is always a learning opportunity and allows personal growth.
Just when you were mentioning that your first child, it kind of brought back a memory of me. When I had my first kid, my father-in-law said, "Are you ready to change diapers?" And I said, "Sure." How often could that be? Like 2-3 times a day? And he looked at me and he just said, "You're doomed." So anyway, definitely, it's part of life, right? And it's part of your career, especially. My career has been definitely filled with change. The job transition that I'm going through right now is something that I actually experienced a few times, where jobs were eliminated or departments were merged, and so what do? You can either see that adversity as a fire and let it burn you up, or see it as fuel to energize you. And I really chose the latter, and continue to choose the latter, even in days, where it's kind of tough, where you're like, geez, I thought I, could get that interview, or I could, why didn't they, call me back for whatever. You just got to dust yourself off, just like a lot of the panelists have said, it's something, change is really something you can often plan for too. It's going to come, right? So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with change as a person is really important. Don't let it stress you out. Just let it be part of your life, and sort of develop a plan for that adversity, or for whatever. It may not be a major event, maybe just something that you just need to deal with. And throughout each of these professional dips that I've had in my career, I've had great support along the way, and my wife has been fantastic, and other folks that I've worked with have been incredibly helpful. And just to go back to the networking thing, networking isn't I think it's very rarely for getting a job, and so during these periods where I'm looking, I don't use that networking as an opportunity to ask for a job. I ask for advice mostly. And so when you have these periods where things aren't so rosy, you really can rely on those folks to help you through that, and kind of provide you with maybe some insight that you didn't otherwise have. Yes. Yes. And that I've already answered that question.
Okay, you're making me rack my brain because I graduated in 1988 with my MBA. I would have to say it was one of the my specialty was health policy and management. My MPA had a focus in that, so I would definitely say it was the health policy, framework courses, because it just brought in my knowledge of the field I was working in, and I wouldn't have had that knowledge just as a hands-on therapist.
I would say that mine is budgeting. It wasn't one that I was especially fond of, but I found that even as president of Pi Alpha Alpha, there's budgeting for that. There's always going to be, whether it's your home finances or whatever it is, things that kind of click and apply in different places. So, yeah, it was probably budgeting, even though it wasn't my favorite.
For me, I will also have to say it was budgeting. Last semester, 2 semesters ago, I took budgeting with an adjunct professor by the name of Valerie Wilson, and she was the eye-opener for me as it pertains going back to networking. Because at the time, I was preparing to apply for the position that I'm currently in now. And as I say, I work in fiscal administration, which is in what we call Show Me the Money department, which handles all money and budgeting and revenue. And at the time I was taking her course and I presented to her, and she was just pouring so much into us about budget and checks and balances. And then she took it a step further to sort of empower us on how to actually build a resume. And at the time, I was like, Danny, you getting ready to apply to this position. After class, talk to her. And Valerie Wilson, she actually is the CFO of the Newark Public School System. And she was teaching a course, and I said, I'll take a shot. Went to her after class, spoke to her. Valerie Wilson said to me, she said, Danny, this is what I'll do. I want you to come down to my office, set some time to come down to my office in Newark on Cedar Street, and we'll talk about this position you want to apply to. And I went down there and I sat down and I talked with her. She laid out the position. She laid out my resume. After she looked at my resume, I just wanted to rip it up. But had she not done that, I don't think I'll be where I am today, because she took the time to help me restructure my resume to speak of what I'm learning and to say, this stuff, Danny, it needs to go on your resume. And after going through that process with Valerie, I applied for the position. I called her, Ms. Wilson. Now, the semester has ended just about. They called me for an interview. And she's like, okay, I want you to come back down to my office and we'll go through mock interviews. Now, this is my budget professor that I didn't know from nowhere. She said, come back down. I went back down to her office. She took a whole hour with me. And what was so amazing is that to actually get to her office, I had to go through 2 administrators just to get to her. So that told me she was up there. And she took the time as my professor to sort of lend that hand. Like they said, they won't even know you, but they want to help you. So that networking and marketing. And even I called her back. I got the position. A couple of weeks ago. Now, I've been in a position for about 1.5 years. A couple of weeks ago, guess who reached out to me and said, how's the job? That budget teacher, Valerie Wilson. So budgeting for me has been that good thing.